everybody hear me? I suppose you're all wondering why I gathered you all here today. We're very pleased to be able to announce that we've added 4.2 miles to the Interstate 27 corridor. We haven't really added to the corridor, but we've got more interstate on the corridor now. So it's been a long time coming. I was driving out here with Commissioner New earlier today, and I pointed out to him that I grew up just down the road here on 80th Street. And one day I was a little toddler, I went missing. My parents went out looking for me, found me walking down the middle of this highway in my diaper. I knew at that time I needed to make this a safer corridor. So I started working at 1 year old trying to get this into I-27. So it's taken a few years to get there, but I think we're finally there, and I appreciate everybody coming out. I appreciate all the effort that everybody's put into this over the years. David Jones with the MPO out here, City Manager Jared over here, Atkinson, City of Lubbock. Been a lot of effort put into this over the years. Porch to Plains assistance. We've been able to finally get something accomplished, and we're going to continue working on the other 900 miles. With that being said, I'd like to introduce from the Texas Transportation Commission, Commissioner Alvin Cruz.
That's my favorite kind of introduction. It's nice and short and sweet. So I guess, you know, most of us go to college and we don't know what we want to be when we get big, and then Steve figured it out at 1, not too bad. I am here to tell you thank you for being here, and that it is my pleasure to say thank you to Senator Ted Cruz and to Congressman Jodey Arrington, and I'm also joined up here by our chairwoman of the I-27 Advisory Committee, TxDOT, San Angelo Mayor Brenda Gunter, Lubbock Mayor Mark McBrayer, the Porch to Plains Alliance President and CEO Lauren Verdunio, and I see others. I see Mayor Laurie Long from Midland. I see Judge Curtis Harris from Lubbock. He's on the advisory committee and vice chair, and so I think there's a lot of folks pushing on the wheel to make this kind of stuff happen. And so it's a great honor for me to be here representing the Texas Transportation Commission and talk about this new addition to the Porch to Plains corridor in I-27. My job on this really was just to push on the wheel, trying to make sure TxDOT was on board with the designation of I-27, and the governor would sign off saying he'd help us get it built. And so that was my part of pushing on the wheel, and it takes everybody doing what their part is. The Porch to Plains corridor is important to the state's economy, to our citizens, and our place in the global marketplace. Last fall, the Federal Highway Administration and Texas Transportation Commission approved the expansion of the first new segment of I-27, making a significant milestone in the development of the Porch to Plains corridor. This addition between Lubbock and Lamesa is part of the existing 124 miles of I-27. This expansion will enhance traffic flow, and ensure continuity of the state highway system. The new segment will run concurrently with US Highway 87, and with the installation of the new signage, will continue to execute the I-27 system and Texas implementation plan. This unveiling works with an increase in the long term. And for us out here in West Texas and South Texas, Laredo, Eagle Pass, Del Rio, and up to through Dumas and up to the Oklahoma border as well as the New Mexico border, all of this is very important as our part of upgrading the Porch to Plains corridor into an interstate facility for economic prosperity for all of us that live out here in these parts. And it's good for Texas, and it's good for our nation. To remain economically competitive, industries in West and South Texas need access to an interstate that connects with expanding markets and with international gateways like Laredo and Eagle Pass. Many industries will benefit from an upgraded interstate, including energy, food, agriculture, and industries like transportation of goods, warehousing, and manufacturing. For example, the Ports to Plains corridor supports the largest agricultural production in the country. It also connects the Permian Basin and the Eagle Ford Shale, making the movement of the crude and things in the oil field much more easily done. It also gives them better access for anything that's not on the pipeline to the Corpus Christi port, which is one of the largest ports and refinery areas for the state of Texas. So this interstate's going to do some great things for the economy in this corridor. $3.4 billion in travel costs saved, 17,710 jobs. It's damn good that they can get it down to that kind of number. 17,710 jobs created, and $2.2 billion in annual GDP increase in this area of the state. And it also has a great impact, economic estimated impact for the Pittsburgh, Texas. $690 million in travel costs saved annually, 400 jobs created elsewhere in Texas, and $640 million annual GDP increase in the other parts of Texas with the completion of this interstate in today's dollars. Congestion help for San Antonio and a direct connection to Denver, to Salt Lake, to Seattle, which is the 9th busiest port in the United States. All of these things are going to help. And I just want to spend a little time because it's important to the governor that we're working on congestion at all times. And that's what this does. This sets us up where things that come in from Laredo, 15 to 20,000 trucks, when they come in right now, they have to go to San Antonio to hit 10 to go west, to go to those ports that I described. When 27 is in place, they leave Del Rio, they leave Laredo or Eagle Pass, they go due north and they hit 10 and they leave, and they're not part of San Antonio's congestion. They're not part of Austin's congestion. So all of this stuff is symbiotic in the way that it works for the state of Texas, and I think that's an important part of this. Again, I want to thank you for having me here, and thank you for the part of the Texas Transportation Commission and TxDOT having this, and look forward to working with you to continue to make this thing come together as I-27 and completion of the Ports to Plains corridor. It's my pleasure now to bring up Senator Ted Cruz, and we're very appreciative for his work on the designation.
Well, thank you, and it is great to be back in West Texas. It's great to be back in Lubbock. And I want to start by just saying thank you to all the men and women who are gathered here, who have worked so hard to make the Ports to Plains corridor a reality. And I remember back about 6 years ago, the coalition, the Ports to Plains Coalition, came to my office in D.C. We met in the basement hideaway that I have in the Capitol. And the team, many of whom are here today, laid out why this transportation corridor was so critical to trade and commerce, so critical to jobs, so critical to the prosperity and continued abundance in Texas. And they made an ask. They said, Ted, will you lead the fight to make this a reality, to make this happen in the United States Senate? Folks had been trying for a long time and had been running into roadblocks, running into bureaucratic delays in the Senate. It hadn't gotten done. I said, I would be honored to take up this task and do the hard work that it needs to make it happen. I teamed up with Ben Ray Lujan, Democrat from New Mexico, and we said we're going to make I-27 a reality. And I'll tell you, simultaneously, I also teamed up with Raphael Warnock, Democrat from Georgia, to make I-14 a reality. I-14 will run from the Permian Basin east all the way through to Georgia and the Atlantic Ocean. I-27, Ports to Plains corridor, is a 963-mile corridor that connects West and South Texas to Mexico. Starts in Laredo, goes up through West Texas, goes up through the Panhandle, goes up through New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado. It meets up with the Heartland Expressway, which runs through Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming, and then joins the Theodore Roosevelt Expressway that extends through South Dakota, North Dakota, and Montana. And finally, through Montana, it reaches Canada. The corridor spans 26 Texas counties and includes portions of critical interstates throughout the state. In moving the legislation forward for I-14 and I-27, we took first I-14 to the floor of the Senate. I stood up and gave a speech on the floor of the Senate advocating for I-14, and then Raphael Warnock, who's one of the most liberal Democrats in the entire Senate, he stood up and gave a speech on the floor of the Senate in support of I-14. And at that point, Tom Carper, a Democrat from Delaware, he stood up in the Senate floor. He said, well, heck, if Cruz is for it and Warnock's for it, we all got to be for it. And it passed 100-0. And that new interstate will now create thousands of jobs and transport billions of dollars of commerce as it's built from West Texas all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. I-27 working hand in hand with Democrats. We got it designated, and we're now working hand in hand with our state officials to provide the funding to build this critical artery. And I will tell you, if you look at Texas, you look at the prosperity we have in Texas, it's because there's an awful lot going on here that we're doing right. You know, when I was first elected 13 years ago, there were 26 million Texans. Today, there are more than 31 million Texans. We've added more than 5 million Texans in 13 years. Over 1,000 people a day move into the state of Texas every day for over a decade. There are a lot of reasons people come, but the number one reason people come to Texas is where the jobs are. And we need to continue to make Texas an oasis for jobs and having effective transportation, having effective trade routes from Laredo all the way through West Texas and the Panhandle all the way up to Canada is a critical part of doing so. And so I will say one of the consequences of the election in November is the voters have now given Republicans a majority in the United States Senate, and as a result of that, starting this past January, I'm the new chairman of the Senate Committee on Commerce, Transportation, and Science. Now, the Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee has jurisdiction over 40% of the U.S. economy. My number one priority is jobs, jobs, jobs. And if you care about jobs in Texas, there are very few positions that can fight for jobs for Texas better than being chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee. Among other things, the U.S. Department of Transportation, we have jurisdiction over the Transportation Department. So I'll tell you, to the good men and women at TxDOT, I am working hand in hand with you and hand in hand with the Transportation Department, but we are going to ensure the funding is here to fully build this interstate so that it is an artery that is traveling trade and commerce and goods and livestock and crops and cotton and oil and gas and all of the commerce that we have traveling through this vital artery. And so I just want to say what I started with. Thank you. I-27, the Ports to Plains corridor, does not happen without the hard work of the men and women gathered here, men and women up in this state, who have put blood, sweat, and tears into making this happen. And this is part of how we keep Texas prosperous. Just a major step forward for Lubbock, for West Texas, for the entire state, for the entire country. And I'm proud to be working alongside each other. Thank you. And now I have the honor of introducing your great Congressman, a ferocious advocate for Lubbock and West Texas, who personally delivers bales of cotton to every member of Congress and fights for you every day. Congressman Jodey Arrington.
Give it up for Senator Cruz, y'all. I made him an honorary West Texan this morning. By whatever authority and power vested in me, I made him an honorary West Texan. You know why? Because he shares our values and he shares our fight for the future of our country. Amen? And I don't know about you, but I got a new spring in my step, and a new song in my heart, and a renewed hope for this country and for my children's future. Amen? Do you feel that? Do you feel a little bit of that dark cloud lifting? Well, listen, if we're not going to make America great again unless we keep America energy independent and food secure. And you can't do that without the cowboys and plowboys and the roughnecks and the roustabouts, the God-fearing, freedom-loving people of West Texas and in rural communities throughout the heartland. And so I am proud of our nation's investment in the ag and energy epicenter and communities like West Texas throughout that Ports to Plains corridor. It's critical, guys, not just for our local economy, but for our national economy, for our national security, and quite frankly, for our allies around the world. So we are indeed open for business, and we intend to supply the world with our food, fuel, and fiber, our abundant, reliable, clean, and affordable ag and energy for right here in God's country. Let me say a few just big West Texas thank yous. First of all, thank you, West Texas, for letting me be your voice in our nation's capital. I have never been more honored to serve and to fight and to work for a better group of people than my people back here on the South Plains and in the big country. I want to thank Mr. Alvin New, former mayor, our commissioner, our voice of rural Texas. I want to thank the local leaders in the audience and those on stage. I want to thank our partners, our regional TxDOT partners. Mr. Warren, thank you so much for being a great partner and believing in this project. And I want to thank Mr. Ted Cruz. Three things that were my top priorities to ensure a strong and prosperous West Texas when you sent me to Congress. Number one, we had to get cotton back in the Farm Bill. 2018, it would have devastated what represents billions of dollars to this region. Well, I had not just a willing partner, I had a champion in the Senate, in Senator Cruz. When we were competing to secure the B-21 bomber, the next generation bomber for the big country out at Dyess Air Force Base, I had a guy that not only was part of the leadership team, he led the charge in the Senate. That's $1 million a day to the key city there in the big country. And then we had the Ports to Plains. I don't think there's a bigger project, Chancellor Hance, a more visionary initiative that will be more transformational for our region and the country than what we're talking about today. Generations will be blessed because of this investment. And so, God bless you, Mr. Cruz, for your great work, for your love of our country, for your fight for all that's good about this republic, and for standing with your friends, and as an honorary West Texan, and your fellow West Texans. Give it up for Ted Cruz and all his good work. My last point of gratitude is to one of my best friends and mentors. You know, it takes a team to ever accomplish anything extraordinary, anything as important as this initiative. And this man who hails from humble beginnings in Castro County and who graced the state Senate and the halls of Congress. He headed up the Railroad Commission for the great state of Texas, and then was at the helm of our beloved Texas Tech University. I'm talking about Kent R. Hance. Nobody has done more for West Texas. Nobody has done more for West Texas than this man. And I stand on his shoulders. And if I can do a fraction of what he's done, we're going to not just be okay, our best and brightest days are ahead of us. God bless America and go West Texas.
unfortunate part about me speaking now is I'm having to follow these guys and their speeches, so I'm not sure what else I can add to the conversation. They've said it all, but let me say the following. Today is a sign. It's about putting up a sign. It's also a sign that I-27 is no longer just about a dream, but it's about a reality. So many people have said, this is never going to happen. Forget about it. It'll never happen in my lifetime. So today that we have the opportunity to celebrate the first I-27 sign, we'll say to everybody, it is a reality. It's no longer a dream. And it is about having people like Senator Cruz and Representative Jodey Arrington to be our voices, to be the leaders that we needed to make this process happen. And it's also about Senator Perry, because he and our Texas legislators believed in this process. And he fought for us very strongly with TxDOT and said, we need to finance a study. We need to prove up that this project isn't just somebody's dream, but it's about something that's needed, and we need to be able to sell TxDOT on the needs, and statistics speak loudly. The Carver organization worked fast and furious, and we did this during COVID. So imagine putting together all of the statistics, all the information up and down the corridor to prove up that this corridor was needed, that it is a corridor where economic development drives the need. It is about food, fuel, and fiber. It is about national security. It is about defense. What we do in West Texas is important to the country, and it's important to us internationally. This corridor will be the message to the rest of the world that if you work hard enough, if you prove it up, it can happen. And it is about changing time. It's about changing needs. It's about changing markets. And it's about changing routes. The fact from I-25 to I-35 is over 600 miles. There aren't alternative routes. One of the key issues on anybody's P&L statement are transportation costs. We've got to figure out how to get product quicker to market, less expensive, and we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to be competitive in the industries that they serve. Cotton, which 50% of the cotton grown in the United States is here in Lubbock, in the Lubbock area. We sell what the world needs. We represent what the world wants. And this transportation route is about serving America, not just serving Texas. Transportation is economic development. You can't have economic development without transportation. And so I want to thank Alvin New and his strong fight for all of us and support of this project, all of the TxDOT employees who are here today with us, but all the rest of the areas that have engineers who've worked hard on this project. When we started putting together all the numbers and the timelines, I know many of the engineers have been, this isn't going to happen. This is too big, you want too much, the time frame's too quick, but they're doing it. And they're doing it to help us push this project forward. I'm proud to be the I-27 leadership, and I'm proud to have in the audience today so many people who've been a part of the Ports to Plains organization for 20 years. Put your hands up if you've been part of this organization for 20 years fighting for us. Come on, there's a bunch of you out here. Come on. If you hadn't spent the time and the energy and believed in it 20 years ago, we wouldn't be here today. And we're here today because you stuck with it and believed in it and worked with us to make it happen. And again, I want to thank Senator Perry for all of the work, the effort, and being behind our initiatives and our efforts to make this thing a reality. And it couldn't happen without the leadership and the support that we have up here today. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for being a voice for us. We're fighting as hard as we can. I hate the word it takes a village, but it takes a village and a whole group of people like all of you making this thing happen. Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce the mayor for Lubbock, Mr. Mark McGrayer. Would you please come forward, please? Thank you.
You know, whenever you have this many politicians together in one place, it must be that they all see the importance of what's happening here. And so it's a tribute. This kind of project takes a lot of vision. Brenda sort of hinted at that. It's 20 years that they've been working on this. Somebody had to have that vision 20 years ago and start working on it. But not just having a vision, but staying committed to that vision over those years and the years ahead. We still got a lot of years ahead of us to bring this vision to fruition. I had the opportunity to be with the Ports to Plains Alliance, to be up in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago with Brenda and with Tina and Bobby, and I'm trying to think of who else I see here today that were up there with you. It was my first opportunity as mayor of Lubbock to work on that, but I know other mayors have worked on that, other city council people have worked on that. I just step in here, I keep that ball moving forward, but the thing that impressed me about it was from Texas, from Oklahoma, from North Dakota, from South Dakota, from Nebraska, all the people that were there working together, cooperating to make this. None of us were working against each other. We all saw that we needed to work together and we were all working together to have, I'm going to steal a little bit of Trump's language, a big, beautiful road. We're going to have a big, beautiful road. And I'm hoping we can get him excited about that too, because this is the kind of stuff that our president gets excited about. Brenda sort of focused on it. There's not an interstate between 35 and 25, 600 miles. When I had the opportunity to meet with, of course, met with our senator here, Cruz, and met with Jodey Arrington, and met with Henry Cuellar, a Democrat down in the valley. And he told us that the bridge from Laredo was had two bridges of 8 lanes each. One is being expanded to 18 lanes, the other to 16 lanes. All that 18-wheeler traffic, and where's it going? It's going over to I-35. You've driven I-35 recently, and how congested it is. I mean, the vision and the need for this project is greater now than it's ever been. So I think we're in the best place ever now to get it moved forward. I'm glad we have a pretty decent day here to celebrate this. I'm standing before you as a mayor, but again, I stand on a long tradition of people who worked very hard over the years on this. We've never lost sight of the importance of this project to our community here. So I want to thank all of them for all their work. It's not just about freight and flow, it's about our readiness for the future. I mean, as our Congressman likes to say, food, fuel, and fiber, it all runs right through Lubbock, Texas, and runs up and down the middle of this country, the best part of this country. It's about assuring that our city and communities south of us have this infrastructure in place to compete, to thrive, and to grow also along with us. It might look like a short stretch on a map, but it's a major step in a much, much longer journey, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. But it's a step, and that's how we make this thing happen, a step at a time. It symbolizes a true corridor linking our agricultural producers, our energy innovators, our entrepreneurs, our defense industry, and our families for the broader future of Texas and beyond. So we'll keep building this mile by mile as we go on, community by community, reaching out to them, and it's going to be that same vision, commitment, and cooperation that makes it come to pass. I want to thank Commissioner Avenue for his work on this. Certainly our Congressman Jodey Arrington has worked hard, and the generosity of these people to sit down and meet with us when we were up there and spend their time with us. Senator Cruz making himself available to us and spent a long time. And it's clear that these fellows are focused on this project. They're very aware of what we're trying to do and very committed to it. I want to also thank Mayor Gunther. I did not realize how long she had been working on this, and so committed to that. So happy to meet her and have an opportunity to work with her. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for working very hard with us. Got a great guy here in Roy working for us. I want to thank all of them in the Ports to Plains Alliance. God bless West Texas. God bless Lubbock, and I want to introduce Warren. Okay, Steve, come on up here. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. A little curveball there. You mentioned seconds about all these politicians all gathered together in one place, and thought I needed to point out that shaking hands with Senator Cruz a few minutes ago. My watch came up with not sure what happened. Okay. I'll visit with you after meeting. I'd like to make a personal introduction of Lauren Gardner, if y'all don't mind. Lauren, I worked with Lauren for a lot of years in James County. He was the former district engineer out of the area. Oh, yes, sorry. Lauren, when he retired, he didn't just say, I'm done, I'm going fishing. He took on a much more challenging job, which was heading up the Ports and Plains Alliance. And I gotta say, Lauren, you've done one hell of a good job. And we appreciate everything you've done. I will tell you all that have been out there on this court for so many years, I've been on it as well. It's one of the better things that's happened to us here. And I wish you the best, Lauren. Sit down and listen to
Well, we spent a lot of time, a lot of effort to get everybody out here today. So I know it's running long, but guess what? We spent a lot of time, a lot of effort to get everybody out here today. So let's just relish in that moment and take an opportunity to celebrate what we're here to do. We're here to celebrate actually the sign unveiling of Interstate 27 extension 4.2 miles south of Lubbock on our way to Laredo, eventually someday. And I want to start off first of all by thanking TxDOT at the state level, Commissioner Cruz, representing the rural counties of Texas, and having the interest in Lubbock and San Angelo and Amarillo and all the way up and down this corridor, all the way from Dalhart all the way down to Laredo. Commissioner Cruz has been a champion for the rural corridor in Texas, and I'm very appreciative of that, and will continue to be so. I'm grateful to Steve Warren, the Lubbock District, because as this interstate gets designated as a future interstate, or this corridor gets designated as a future interstate, it doesn't move to an interstate unless the TxDOT district engineer decides to study that, put the effort in, evaluate it, and put that money into it to be able to upgrade it to an interstate standard. Steve and Kyle and Francis, works with Steve as his deputy, they work together to try to do this evaluation of this 4.2 miles, and they've been working on that, and therefore they were able to submit that application to the Federal Highway Administration back this last summer to be able to get it designated. So we're grateful for our district engineers up and down this corridor. They're able to do that kind of work for us. We're here today also because of the hard work and the championing of our two congressional representatives here. Senator Ted Cruz has decided to champion this on the Senate side. We're very grateful, Senator, for your effort in doing that. He mentioned the number 6 years. I want to come back to that 6 years here in a minute. But also on the House side, this doesn't happen without the work of Jodey Arrington and Congressman Arrington. And Congressman, we're grateful for your work also in being able to champion this at the federal level. And as you heard him talk about it, it's going to have to happen at the federal level. This is an interstate highway, and it's to be funded. We're going to make the funding work. It's going to have to happen at that level also. You heard Mayor Gunter mention Senator Perry. And I want to pause here for a moment because unfortunately they were not able to make this event because Texas is in the middle of the session and they're doing work right now to try to solve some things on a state level. But when I was with TxDOT in 2016, I took a position overseeing planning and project development for the state. And one of the first assignments that was given to me was you need to go across the street and you need to visit with Senator Perry about Ports and Plains. And so I did. I went across the street. This was in 16. And he started posing to me the idea of doing a feasibility study on the Ports and Plains corridor. And what would that look like? What would that need to take? I told the senators at the time, I said, Senator, if y'all legislate that, we'll study. I mean, that's what we do, and we would do that if we first legislated to do that. At that time, it did not happen at 16, but by the time 18 came along and I was retiring from the state at the time, that study did get authorized. Senator Perry had that happen and made that happen. All the numbers that you heard quoted today from Senator Cruz, from Congressman Arrington, from from Mayor Gunter, all those numbers that you heard today, those numbers just weren't pulled out of the thin air. All those economic numbers, all that safety numbers, all that job numbers, it just wasn't pulled out of thin air. That was due to the efforts of that state study that shored up the idea that, you know what, building a future interstate in Texas on the coast of Plains is a good idea. In fact, if you can get it built, it'll generate 2x in return. And that's pretty good on that kind of a capital improvement project. And so, with his help, Senator Perry, and with Representative Ford Price and Amarillo on the House side, that bill was passed and that study occurred and that work happened. And it's interesting enough that 6-year window comes into play. I want to talk about this 6-year window. In 1968, under the LBJ administration, the Interstate Highway Act of 1968 was signed. Representing the House on the budget, on the Appropriations Committee, chair of the Appropriations Committee is a man by the name of George Mahon from Lorain, Texas. If y'all don't know where Lorain, Texas is. And he chaired the Appropriations Committee. LBJ signed the bill. This is 1968. This added 1,500 miles to the interstate highway system, including the 124 miles from Lubbock to Amarillo. And then they went ahead in that act and funded it through about 4 or 5 fiscal years of funding. I was visiting Larry Meyer here a week or so ago. We were trying to tie down some dates, and I realized that 73 and 74, when that fiscal funding was running out, it needed to be kind of reinforced again. And that money was regenerated for us to continue to build what we need to build to eventually be able to close the deal and build Interstate 27 in Lubbock, Texas. But in 1979 through 1985, and Congressman Arrington has already shown some respect to that, George Mahon was no longer our representative, but Ken Hance was. And so for 6 years, an interesting number, thank you, Cruz, a 6-year window, Ken Hance was representing us in West Texas during the time that we were building the Interstate 27 from Lubbock to Amarillo, and has a lot of influence on the results of that build-out over that period of time. It took us 23 years to build that interstate at about $450 million. For the next 27 years, from 92 to 19 today, from 92 to 19, we had no future interstate being built on our corridor, Coast of Plains. In fact, the way the nation went, we went to 4-lane divided. Texas's system was the Texas trunk system. And we had to compete with every other 11,000 lane miles in the state of Texas that was on the Texas trunk system. So we chipped a little at it, we worked a little at it. Mayor Gunner asked about how many people were members of Sports to Plains. Some of you raised your hand, 20 years of it. You were the 20 years of that era where we had, piecemeal this thing to get it built. Now I want to talk about this last 6 years. Because what happened in the last 6 years has been pretty phenomenal. And again, I'm going to mention Ken Hance's name. Because it was Ken Hance and Ken Hance's team that actually started putting that ball in motion with Ports to Plains. And I think that was part of the visit, Senator Cruz's office, about we can do this, we need to do this, and it makes sense to do it again. So Ken Hance's team, with the work of Sherry Huddleston, and the work representing the Texas side of it, is the one that been putting the effort together to help us get on the state side, the state legislative bills that have been written to get the study going, but has also been working with the federal team, David Poore out of D.C., to be able to continue to keep this momentum moving forward. It's taken 6 years on that, but guess what? The study happened in 2019. The value was there. The interstate designation happened in March of 22. The interstate numbering designation happened in March of 24. Had a little hiccup there. We just assumed that it was going to be I-27, right? Because we had some I-27. But we had to handle the situation similar to what we had on I-35. Our corridor splits. It splits the Star City. It comes together with Mesa. So we had to have an I-27 West and an I-27 East. We got through that, worked that out, made that happen. And that all happened in March of 24. And then, of course, today, in September of 24, and why we're here today, the Federal Highway Administration bought off on Steve Warren and Kyle Francis's application to upgrade this 4.2 miles of this corridor to state standard and name it I-27. So that's what it takes. That's what it takes. Our estimate today out of that study was $28 billion. It's not in 2020. Today, TxDOT's 2050 plan says the estimate's going to be about $32 billion to build Interstate 27 today. Interesting enough, TxDOT has close to $3 billion in the queue in the 10-year window on our corridor today. If you look at a future Interstate Highway Act, which can happen, and with the help of Senator Cruz and Congressman Arrington, can happen. If we get an Interstate Highway Act going into the next fall and the next year, all we got to do is come up with a 90%, 10% ratio. Well, Texas has got 10% already on the corridor. We just got to put another 90% for the federal level on the Interstate Highway Act. And folks, we can build your Interstate 27 all the way through Texas and get it done sooner than later. So I'm honored to be up here. I've been at this job for 2 years with Course of Plains. I'm honored to be a part of it. I was a district engineer, Steve said, in Odessa in 2004. When we signed the study, Colorado DOT did the study on my corridor. I should have my name on that study. Well, okay, as I get old and decrepit in my old age, I get the chance to maybe see something on the back of this thing as we try to build future 27 today. So I'm grateful for all of you being here and supporting it. I'm grateful for all of you being, those of you that are members of the Alliance. It takes this out of your seat to get this done. It's always taken good roads associations. It's always taken chambers of commerces. It's always taken business leaders. It's always taken mayors. It's always taken county judges. It's always taken those people to get this stuff done in the United States of America. And it's no different than the Course of Plains corridor today. And we want to thank you for that. And as we can kind of conclude this event, I want to kind of point everybody's direction over to our TxDOT guys working over here by the interstate, because at this moment in time we're going to actually turn that sign around, and we are now